Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and appreciate you coming to City Council Standing Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting today. We have a very interesting agenda, and so with that, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you take care of chamber evacuation
Yes,
notice
Madam
and
President.
speaker's notice?
Madam Chair. Upon activation of the emergency alarm signal, all persons should immediately exit the building. Please use the exits to the left or right of the council chamber or east or west stairwell outside the rear doors of the chamber leading to Marshall Street. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, security will direct everyone down 9th Street to the assembly area located inside the former public safety building parking lot. Able persons should assist visually and hearing impaired visitors with exiting the building. Public speaker guidelines. Individuals wishing to speak during the public hearings and the public comment period are generally allowed 3 minutes to speak. Persons appearing before the committee are not allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business ventures, use language of a personal nature which insults or demeans any person, including comments directed at public officials or staff members that are not related to their official duties, or address question or staff members directly. All questions are to be directed to the committee chair. Failure to adhere to the guidelines may result in speakers forfeiting any remaining time, and further disciplinary action is necessary, which can include barring from attendance at future meetings of the committee for a period of 6 months. And Madam Chair, all members are in attendance today, with the exception of Ms. Lynch, and you do have quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Appreciate that. We'll move to the public comment period.
Public comment is now open. Is there anyone present who wishes to address this committee regarding items not on today's agenda? Madam Chair, seeing none and no one signed up to speak virtually before the 10 a.m. deadline, the public comment period is now open and back to the committee.
Okay, thank you very much. Public comment period is closed. Move to the approval of the minutes.
The minutes to be approved are for September 17th, 2025 for the Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee meeting held at 2 p.m. If there are no amendments or corrections, then the meeting minutes will stand approved as presented. Those minutes have been approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will move next to the appointments, boards and commissions.
Good afternoon, Chair Robertson, Ms. Jones, Pamela Nichols, Council Management Analyst. The vacancy report before you captures current and projected vacancies through February of 2026. So starting with the Economic Development Authority, we have one vacancy for a resident of the city who is a member of the Banking, Lending, or Financial Service Committee community. We have two applications, one from Alexis Houlihan and Kenneth Smither. Both are 3rd District residents. Would you like for me to continue? Okay.
So thank you. If I'm looking at this current, those that are currently serving, we have, do we have any members at the present time from the 3rd District?
We do have Mr. Hughes.
Mhm.
He's a 3rd District resident, and he's up for reappointment. But outside of that, no, ma'am.
Just by any chance, we've received any information from the authority itself as it relates to the vacancy?
No, but we did provide the applications to the economic development staff, but it has been their position that they would like to remain neutral as to not show preference.
Appreciate that. Um, One of the things that I think that is important for us to try, and what I'm looking at is making sure that we provide representation from as many of the councilmatic districts as we can. I'm looking at this and we have 1, 2, 3 representatives currently from the first district. Is that correct?
That is correct. One individual has termed out, and so that term has ended.
But they're still serving.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the vacancy that we're filling as a part of this?
There's actually 2 vacancies for this board. The
Mhm.
second vacancy is for a member of the residential, commercial, mixed-use development community.
Pleasure committee.
Hey, Ms. Pam, how are you?
Right.
So the second part of the names that represent a resident of the city who is a member of a resident, we can't pick 2 from those. You can only pick 1 from here,
That is correct. We only have 1 vacancy.
1 vacancy, okay.
Yes. And we have a reappointment application from Mr. Hughes.
Mhm.
And you will notice that you also have an application from Cindy Anderson, who requested for her application to be withdrawn for
Mhm.
consideration, and Lamar Johnson and Ashley Williams.
Yeah. So the first one, I don't know.
So, Pam, in the future, what Councilman Jones and I have decided that rather than taking this kind of time to review these, with the number of boards and commissions that come before us on a regular basis and having an opportunity to fully look at the representation by district is one of our greatest, one of our concerns or
Okay.
interests. And also, in the future, what I would ask is for the land use, for the Finance and Economic Development Committee, if you would brief Ms. Councilperson Jones prior to, and then that way we will come with a recommendation.
Almost definitely. So we will work with her office to set up a schedule so
Right.
that we can review the
Right.
applications.
All right. So with that, we will support, um, I think the person with the financial service would be the best representation for the Economic Development Authority. So I would propose moving forward with, said John Osler?
Kenneth Smither or Alexis Julian?
I'm
Where are we?
sorry, I'm looking at the wrong.
Okay.
Yes, Kenneth. Okay. Kenneth will be fine with you. Okay,
Smither.
thank you.
Kenneth Smither.
Vacancy.
Okay. I'm sorry. So what was the recommendations?
Kenneth
Okay.
Smitter.
Mm-hmm. And then for the resident of the city who is a member of residential, commercial, mixed-use development community, I have a reappointment application from Nathan Hughes. And then an application from Lamar Johnson, 6th District resident, and Ashley Williams, 7th District resident.
This guy that wants to be reappointed.
I recommend Lamar Johnson.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And then moving on to the Local Finance Board for other post-employment benefits. This board was created in 2018, and when it was originally created, it consisted of the Director of Finance, the DCAO of Finance, and the Investment Debt Manager. And since that time, of course, those individuals had left. So we do have a reappointment application from Michael Nguyen. And then for the Chief Financial Officer, we have an application from Tanika Jackson.
Um, those recommendations are fine.
Wonderful. And then moving down to the Minority Business Enterprise for Emergency Small Business Advisory Board. For representative of a minority business enterprise, we have 2 vacancies and 2 reappointment applications, one from Morris Cephas and Shirley Crawford.
Those recommendations are fine for reappointment. Thank you.
And then moving on to this next page, we have the Participatory Budgeting Steering Commission. And
We are entertaining some changes as it relates to that, so we're going to pass on this at this time until we've confirmed some additional changes that we're in the process of discussing.
okay, so would you like to continue and maybe into
Yes.
January?
Yes.
Until we, okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that clarification. And then lastly, for the Richmond Region Tourism, we have, I do apologize, 2 vacancies. One for, and we got a reappointment application from Pauline Cheatham. And then we have an initial application from Kimberly Love Lindsay. The current member who is serving is also Mr. Lindsay, who has expressed interest in not being reappointed. So he did provide a recommendation. I'm sorry if I butchered that. Let's start over again. Okay. So Mr. Lindsay is the current member, but he is not interested in reappointment. And so we do have an appointment, an application from Kimberly Love Lindsay. And so there are 2 vacancies,
And only one applicant.
2 applications and 2 vacancies.
Lindsay, am I understanding you said that Lindsay is not interested?
Not interested in being reappointed. He is eligible, but not interested.
And so Cheatham?
Interested. And then Kimberly Lindsay, related to Michael Lindsay, has submitted an application for consideration.
Okay. All right, so that's why I'm confused.
Yes, ma'am, I apologize.
All right, let's move forward with the reappointment. I need to review the second applicant. Is the second applicant related to the person who's stepping down?
Yes,
Okay, so let's hold on that one.
okay,
And we'll move forward with the reappointment.
wonderful, thank you so much.
Okay. Is that it?
Madam Chair, how long would you like this consideration to be continued for? Is it for 30 days?
I'll refer back to the staff as it relates to the time period for that. If 30 days is adequate, that's fine. It'll give us time to at least review.
Okay, yes,
Okay.
because the next review by standing committees is January.
January. Okay, good enough. Thank you.
So we will continue to January.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ready?
Madam Chair, can I get a motion and a second, please?
So moved. Well, motion to approve. The exception of the PB to be continued until January.
Okay, can I get a second?
Okay, I'll second that.
Thank you. The committee is voting on the board's recommendation as stated. Ms. Lynch,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jones,
Aye.
Chair Robertson.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, Madam Clerk, we'll move to the papers as they are presented. We will take the two papers in regards to the tourism awards as a block. I think that's number 3 and 4. Is that correct?
Yeah, 2 and 3.
All righty. Thank you.
It's 3 and 4. You're right, Madam Chair. The first item for consideration is ordinance 2025-225 to amend ordinance number 2025-057 adopted May 12, 2025, which adopted the fiscal year 2025-2026 special fund budget and made appropriations by transferring $2 million from the delinquent tax sales special fund and appropriating such transfer funds to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund special fund for the purposes set forth in City Code. That paper is before the committee.
Thank you. Could we have a presentation from the administration on this paper?
Good afternoon, Megan Brown, Director of Budget and Strategic Planning. This is simply just, again, transferring $2 million from the delinquent tax sale account to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund per the agreement of, or the commitment of the administration after the restitution payment for Mr. Grimm.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Question. I note that this account is not, this is not an audited account yet. Is that correct? And the revenue at 9.1 million before the last action that was taken out of this account still leaves an outstanding balance, if that is correct.
Correct.
What's the plan?
I believe the plan is to restart the delinquent tax sale program. So we left money in there because there are going to be expenditures. I just don't know the details of when or in what fashion the delinquent tax sale program will be restarted. I don't have those details.
We would like to request those details and also a more detailed report on this account, the revenues that have come into this account, what those expenditures were. And you all can inform us as to when we will be able to get that information.
Sure, will do.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any other question, Ms. Brown? Okay, Madam Clerk, we'll have a public hearing on this paper.
Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in opposition to this paper? Is there anyone in the chamber that wishes to speak in support of this paper? Madam Chair, seeing none, the public hearing is now closed and back to the committee.
Madam Clerk, I'd like to be added as a patron to this paper. And I would hope, and also make a note of the request for the report that has been asked to be brought back to the Finance Committee.
That is noted.
Is there a motion?
Well,
I'll also be added as a patron.
same want to be added and motion to forward to council for approval.
The committee is voting on the. Can I get a second, please? Sorry.
Second.
Thank you. The committee is voting on a motion to forward item 1, ordinance 2025-225 to council with a recommendation to approve. Ms. Lynch,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jones,
Aye.
Chair Robertson.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2, please.
Ordinance 2025-232 to authorize the CAO on behalf of the city to accept funds in the amount of $10,000 from the Virginia Department of Energy to amend the fiscal year 2025-2026 special fund budget by creating a new special fund for the Office of Sustainability called the Virginia Energy Resilience Study, Virginia Energy Resilience Planet Grant Special Fund, and to increase the fiscal year 2025-2026 special fund budget in the amount of $10,000 for the purpose of funding the implementation of energy resilience planning for the city's East End. That paper is before the committee.
Good afternoon, Laura Thomas, Director of Sustainability. Council members, I am happy to be here to present this paper. It is a simple, small grant that is going to support work towards development of a resilience hub in the East End, particularly in census tracts 201, 202, and 204, which currently experience the highest level of energy burden in the city of Richmond. It is a simple project that will help us advance and create some structural engineering drawings for a facility to see if it can serve as a resilience hub, particularly in terms of incorporating solar onto the facility. So it is an engineering project in terms.
Recommendation to vote with approval for full cancel. Sorry.
Madam
We
Chair,
didn't do a public
we
hearing.
have to do a public hearing on this paper.
This,
Yes, ma'am. The state Department of Energy, Virginia Department of Energy. No matches required, ma'am.
Madam Chair, can you please turn your mic on?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my question was, the source coming from the state, no match. The locations in the city that would be eligible for this type of, do we have a map of locations in the city? Can you provide that to the committee at some point?
Yes, absolutely. We do have a map of potential resilience hub locations. Ideally, in the future, we have resilience hubs in every neighborhood of the city. We will use this as our first effort to work on creating one, and we can do some lessons learned as we build out a network of these hubs across the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, now we'll have a public hearing on this and we'll accept the motion that has been presented.
Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in opposition to this paper? Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in support of this paper? Madam Chair, seeing none, the public hearing is now closed and back to the committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, Madam Clerk.
The committee is voting on the motion to forward item 2, ordinance 2025-232 to council with a recommendation to approve. Ms. Lynch?
Aye.
Vice Chair Jones?
Aye.
Chair Robinson?
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you.
The next items are item 3, ordinance 2025-233 to authorize a proposed tourism project at 921 Myers Street pursuant to the Virginia Tourism Authority's Tourism Development Financing Program according with the state. Item 4, ordinance 2025-234 to authorize a proposed tourism project at 1600 Roseneath Road pursuant to the Virginia Tourism Authority's Tourism Development Financing Program in accordance to the state law. Those papers are before the committee.
Matt Welch, Department of Economic Development. We have a presentation, I believe it was listed at the end of the agenda, but if we could pull it up now, because it does tie directly to these agenda items.
Madam Chair, are you allowing that presentation to be heard now?
Yes,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
Thank you. Both of these ordinances in front of you relate to this same state program, the Tourism Development Financing Program. So we wanted to do a brief presentation about the program itself and then a few details about each of the projects. A few of you have already seen this presentation, so I will try to move through quickly, but feel free to stop me with questions at any time, or we can always go back to any slide you need at the end. We also have representatives from both the development teams for both projects in the room available to answer any questions you might have about their specific projects. So again, this is a Tourism Development Financing Program, otherwise known as TDFP, and this is a state program through the Virginia Tourism Corporation, and it's a gap financing program for qualifying tourism programs, projects that fill a market deficiency. So essentially, they leverage net new revenue that is generated by the project to provide gap financing to make these projects a reality. And in a few slides, you'll see the details on that. It's a fairly arduous process through the Commonwealth with a lot of steps that have to be achieved for it to move forward, as you can see on the right, including the developer getting a third-party market study to show this deficiency, the developer completing an entire development plan, and then having this ordinance move forward would be one of the last steps, but it would still need to go to the state for final approval and for their underwriting and their review. A major prerequisite in order for a project to qualify for this is that the project has to fall into a locality designated tourism zone. So in this case, back in 2016, City Council adopted 5 tourism zones, which I'll show you in a second. And Scott's Addition is one of those tourism zones, and that's where both of these projects fall. Here's just a quick map. I believe a council member asked to see all the tourism zones and see them mapped. So these are the tourism zones that council adopted back in 2016. I'll note that the state legislation authorizing these tourism zones allows localities to provide a variety of incentives in these situations, such as permit fee waivers, things of that nature. In this case, the city only adopted the tourism zones. We have not offered any specific incentives tied to them. So really the true only benefit right now of being in a tourism zone, if you're a qualifying project, is that you can apply to the state through the city for this program. So the financing structure, the 2 projects we're going to show you fall into 2 different tiers of the state's program. One is the under 100 million tier 1 and the other $100 million plus tier 2. As you can see on the chart, for the tier 1, the developer has to have at least 70% of the funding through their own equity and typical private debt, and up to 30% can use this gap financing. And we're going to get in more detail on the next page, but essentially under the state's enabling authority, the state puts in a percentage, in this tier 1, 1%, and tier 2, 1.5 of the project's revenue. The city puts in the same amount and the developer puts in the same amount as your sources to repay this gap financing. What we negotiated in this case was to get the developers to each offer 2 shares essentially. So instead of $1 city money, getting 2 additional dollars to go toward the gap financing, one from the state, one from the developer. The way we've negotiated these, for every dollar we put in, the state puts in $1 and the developers put in $2. So we've maximized that match even further. And this is just a very simple hypothetical. If a hotel had $1 million in what would be sales tax, taxable revenue in a quarter, these would be how the quarterly contribution towards the gap finance would play out. So say in 10,000 or 15, depending on the tier, state same, and again, the developer doubling that. So $1 city for $3 extra towards the gap financing. Now, a big key is that there has to be a deficiency in the market for the tourism related project. And so we've received a few questions from you all about, hey, Scott's Addition's been booming. Why would this qualify for this project? And I think the key here is that we've seen a lot of development over the years in Scott's Addition. And I'll give you some details on the next slide, but we have not seen a lot of tourism related hotel development. And you can see on the map here where these 2 projects reside, and then the other hotels in the market, most of which are not directly in the immediate area. So again, over the past decade, we're talking 2,600 residential units have been added to Scott's Addition, another 1,000 in the pipeline, at least 14 restaurants, breweries, all of these things. But as you can see in that later bullet, excuse me, there's only been one similar scale hotel project in a 2-mile radius of this over that time period. So those are the reasons why there was the market efficiency box checked for these two projects. And they have market studies and all of that third party to show that. We've already been in conversations, lots of conversations over the last year with the state on these factors. So I'll give you a little detail on both the projects, and I've actually got them in reverse order of how they're showing on your agenda in this presentation. But the first project, which is Ordinance 2025-234, item number 4 on your agenda, is located at 1600 Roseneath Road in the heart of Scott's Addition. So this is the former dairy bar site and also most recently the Tang and Biscuit site. Believe it was last year, and the developer can correct me, maybe the year before, council adopted a SUP for this site to allow the scale of this development. The planned development would have 220 residential units, and then this hotel component, which you can see on the screen. Important to note that everything I'm showing on the screen is only related to the hotel component of that project. Any revenues generated by the residential side, we took that off the table for the analysis because this program will only apply to the hotel piece of this development. The residential is completely separate and independent from a financing standpoint as it relates to this program. So on the hotel side, we're looking at about $40 million in capital investment, about a 7-story building, 8,000 retail space, a total of 95 hotel keys. And you'll see a chart at the end of the presentation, but we estimate over 20 years, which is the bond term, though we expect it to be paid much earlier, that the city will net about 20 million above and beyond any of the dollars we would put towards this gap financing. And that comes from, all the types of taxes we can think of: the real estate tax, sales tax, meals tax, transient occupancy tax, TID fee. And I think we got a question from a council member about that as well. But transient occupancy tax, TID fee is about half of that. So if you take those off the table, even though they are city revenues and they go to city good, we know that they're dedicated to Greca from the occupancy tax until we get the money back. So we still see a net benefit to the city outside of those taxes of about 10 million over the first 20 years. And this is just another slide to again show how the math is done, and that in this case, we're looking at a developer having at least 85% of their funding from other sources, and at most probably about 15%. I think it's our last projections was much lower, even would come from this gap financing, which is well above the state's thresholds of 70% and 30%. And the contribution for every dollar the city is putting in, we're getting 3 other dollars, 1 from the state and 2 from the developer team. And an important thing to note as well is any shortfalls in the debt service are on the developer, not on the city or the state. And per the code, any additional dollars from these revenues that could be available towards this gap financing have to go into early repayment, into principal. So as we are generating these above and beyond the debt service, that's going to allow both of these to be paid off much faster than the 20-year term. We had finance run some bond numbers for us, and I believe this one was under 10 years. It would actually be repaid if it generates the revenues we're projecting. So the second project is a hotel-only project, does not have a residential component, a much larger hotel product. This is right at essentially the intersection of Broad and North Arthur Ashe. This is the former Hardee's site over there near in Suboca, River City Roll, the development right there. This project has at least 109 million capital investment and 253 hotel rooms. So again, a much larger hotel product than the other one. And it has at least 14,000 meeting space. They plan to include a pocket park. And again, we have developer reps here that could give you more detail if you want to hear a little bit more about the actual development plan. In this case, because of the scale of the project, we actually see about 60 million being a net benefit to the city after the incentive over the first 20 years. Same concept as the last one to the question that was asked. About half of that is comes from the transient occupancy tax and the TID fee. So at least 30 million, even if you take that off the table, would be coming to the city over the first 20 years, above and beyond any money that goes towards the gap financing. Similar slide to the last one. In this case, they had to come up with at least 80% of the financing, and they would get limited to 20% in gap financing. They're actually looking more like 87% of secured funding and only needing to gap finance for 13% of it. Slightly higher math here on each party's contribution because of the higher tier project. Now, this is kind of what I was getting at with the 60 million and the 20 million, and happy to come back to this and look, but the key to me here is it's not a project that we say 5, 10, 15 years down the road, we're going to start seeing net benefits, because we're only putting that 1%, that 1.5, which is essentially close to what we get in the sales and use tax, but we're keeping all the other taxes, the real estate, everything else. We see net benefit to the city in revenues from day one. As you can see, in this slightly smaller project, 4 million, and so at least about 2 of that outside of the transient occupancy tax in the first 5 years. In the other case, 12.5 million in the first 5 years. So it's not something where we have to wait until 10, 15 years down the road to start seeing a benefit. By making these projects happen, we see a direct financial benefit right away. And last slide I wanted to show you is just some of the projects, and I believe these are the majority of them throughout the state since this program went into effect about, I believe, 15-ish years ago. Because a lot of these would be ones you've probably heard of. If you're going down to Hampton Roads, you've got the main hotel in Norfolk use this product. The Cavalier used it as well. Closer to Richmond, the recent Hotel Petersburg historic renovation that opened up last year used this product. And anybody who's driven up or down 95 from Richmond towards Northern Virginia has seen the massive Kalahari, if I'm pronouncing that right, resort coming up off the side of I-95. And that used this project as well at a much, much larger scale than we're talking here. That's an almost $1 billion project that was using gap financing for about 220 million of that. So you can see a wide variety here from a $14 million project all the way up to an $885 million project have used this program over the years. And it's something that we're excited to have qualifying projects. We believe that we can finally tap into this state resource. So that is all I had by way of presentation. Again, happy to ask some questions. We've gotten letters of support from, all the entities you see on the screen. So there is a lot of support coming from particularly that geographic area for these projects. And I know the development teams have been in lots of conversation for a long time on these projects with the neighborhood. So they can answer any questions on that.
Thank you for the presentation. Questions before we finish?
So we've had this financing mechanism in place for quite some time. It seems like a really smart idea. Have you seen an increased interest? Like, why aren't we levying this more often? I guess is the question.
So I can't speak to the historical since the tourism zone in 2016 because I wasn't involved. I know about a year ago or a little bit before that, when I came more directly into the department, these were projects that they were in conversations about. So we jumped on both of these then. It was a long process working with the state, also negotiating the cooperation agreements with the extra percentage. So that's why they're coming to you today. So I can't speak to why other projects maybe didn't move forward before that, except for to say that it is a fairly arduous process. As I mentioned, it is a very specific process where only certain projects qualify. The state is pretty strict about making sure there truly is a gap, there truly is a market deficiency. So it's not something that can apply broadly to just any tourism project. It's really for specific circumstances, which we believe both of these fit. And given the timeline and the length and the steps that have to be taken, it's possible some developers just choose not to try to pursue it and focus on other paths. But we're hopeful that if this is successful, other areas in the city with tourism deficiencies, that we now have a template in place for an agreement, and we can probably hopefully use this more in the future, because anytime we can double our dollars with state dollars is a great thing.
Okay. Other question. The designated zones that we currently have. If I'm understanding you correctly, this is the first opportunity that we've taken to take advantage of this source of funding from the state in these tourism zones that we have designated. Is that correct?
I cannot speak to whether they've been explored at all in the past for certain projects and just ended up not moving forward, but I can say, yes, these are the first two that we have brought forward to council for consideration to use this program.
The funding that comes from the state as well as the city, is that grant money to the development, or is that a loan that has to be repaid?
So the way it would work is each quarter, the state would remit to the city through the state's comptroller. Let's just use the 1% example for Elia's math, 1%, which is essentially a portion of the sales and use tax that goes to the state. And the city, when it gets its 1% from the state, its typical local portion, we combine those amounts and then we pay them directly to the gap financing. So we pay it directly to the lender through agreements to pay down this gap financing. So it is essentially a grant to the developer in the sense that it's paying off their gap financing, but it's not a direct cash payment to the developer, and they are then matching that same amount.
So essentially, it is a grant. It's a reappropriation of part of our revenues to cover the gap. So
Yes, it is an incentive
So
that
they-
goes towards the gap financing.
So tell me the total amount, the dollar amount, for each one of the projects. For the city, what is our total gap amount, and the total gap amount that will come from the state?
So the state and the city will give the same amount. I would need to pull back my other spreadsheet to give you the exact amount we're paying out. I focused on how much we are paying out less than what we are bringing in, which was this chart here. But I can follow up with the exact amounts. One of the projects would be issuing gap financing of about $2.9 million, and the other one of about $14 million. I've got to pull up the spreadsheet with our finance folks to pull the exact number, but it would vary over the years. It would all tie directly. It's not a specific amount that's due. It's all based on the performance. So it's that 1% or 1.5% of sales. So essentially, an easier way to say this, for one project, we are giving directly back the sales tax local portion, but we are also getting the state's portion of sales tax, which we don't usually get. In fact, we tried to get it for a couple projects recently and went to the General Assembly and weren't able to do it. But in this case, we'd be able to match that through the.
Trying to make this real clear for myself. The total gap financing for the Roseneath development is what?
The latest estimation is about 2.9 million out of the $40 million total investment. About 2.9 million of the 40 million capital investment. And please step up if I'm mistaken.
And the total gap for the Myers,
That is about 14.3 million out of $109 million total. So I'm sorry, the gap financing is about 14.3 million out of the total capital investment of 109 million. So out of that 109, 14.3 of it is the gap. The rest they've already secured financing.
of that total gap, 1% of it is being paid by the state and the city is picking up the other.
So ultimately, of each of those gaps, the city would be paying back 25% of the total debt service owed, and the state would be paying 25%, and the developer would be paying 50. The 1% just ties to how we do the math each quarter of how much that amount is.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Not accustomed to counting big dollars all the time, so I'm gonna make sure I count them right. Thank you. No other questions for Madam Clerk. We'll have a public hearing on both of these papers.
Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in opposition to these papers? Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in support of these papers? Madam Chair, seeing none, the public hearing is now closed and back to the committee.
Ms. Durden, Ms. Durden, did you want to weigh in on these two papers since they are both in your district?
Thank you, Chair Robertson. I would just say I hope that the committee votes to recommend it for approval and send it to full council. I do believe they serve unique needs in those two separate tourism zones. It's not going to compete with any potential gap funding requests in the convention zone area because it's not in that walking distance for room count. But I think something that wasn't mentioned, which appeals to me, is we're still, tackling the Airbnb short-term rental issue. And by providing more hotel rooms, hopefully it'll make Airbnb less competitive, free those up for housing. Thank you.
Madam Chair, forward to council for approval.
Second.
One comment before we call for the vote. I would like to suggest to the administration that we, and you may have already done this, work very closely with the Richmond Tourism Board as it relates to helping them to appreciate the added inventory that we are adding that is beneficial. I know Neil is also a member of that board, so as I am. And I think that will be really good for us to strengthen that partnership so that as we put out more information and market the opportunities for additional hotel capacity in the city, that we would work with that board as well to be a part of that effort. And Madam Clerk, I'm sure Ms. Jordan would be happy to be a co-patron with on these two papers, and so would I and any of the full Finance Committee as well. And
That is
thank you,
noted.
staff, for the work. Madam Clerk, you can call the question.
The committee is voting to forward ordinance 3, 2025-233 and ordinance 4, 2025-234 to council with the recommendation to approve. Ms. Lynch,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jones,
Aye.
Chair Robertson,
Aye,
that motion has been approved.
thank you. Next item.
Item 5, ordinance 2025-236 to authorize the CAO to execute a grant agreement between the city, Bellevue Gardens v. Virginia LLC and the Economic Development Authority for the purpose of facilitating the construction of an affordable housing development located at 3940 Rosedale Avenue. That paper is before the committee.
Do I have a public hearing on this paper?
Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in opposition to this paper?
Sure.
Is there anyone in the chamber that wishes to speak in support of this paper? Madam Chair, seeing none, the public hearing is now closed and back to the committee.
Discussion on this paper? Questions, discussion?
Is there someone from the administration can speak on this project that says Richmond Bellevue Gardens and the Economic Development Authority of the City of Richmond?
Hello, Rachel Heitman, the Department of Housing and Community Development. So this is a affordable housing development project for 78 units with 42 units at 0 to 50% AMI and 36 units at 50 to 80% AMI located in the 3rd District.
Question, is this a performance grant or a grant directly from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund?
This is an affordable housing performance grant.
It is a performance grant or a grant from, I'm sorry,
It's a performance grant.
it is a performance grant. Okay. And Give me some explanation on how the performance grant works.
Sure. So the Affordable Housing Performance Grant is an incremental tax rebate, which only is in effect after the completion of the project and when the owner and operator of the housing has been shown to be in compliance for providing affordable units. Even if those taxes are paid in the given year, if the developer operator of the housing does not show that those units are in fact in compliance, they will not be issued a rebate. So again, it's for performing, for creating the affordable housing, and for continual provision of affordable housing, which is reviewed annually.
Okay, and one last question. Is there any reason why it's not identified as a performance grant instead of just a grant?
I'm not sure why it's not identified as a performance grant, but it is an affordable housing performance grant, and the grant is attached to the paper.
I would suggest that we put that in the ordinance as well, so that when we ask for the monitoring of our performance grants, we know by ordinance which ones are not just an affordable housing trust grant versus performance.
Absolutely. The department also keeps detailed records of all of the performance grants, so we can absolutely share those. And
We want the ordinance to indicate that for the benefit of us being able to move forward
absolutely.
consistently with
Yeah.
that. Okay, thank
Understood.
you. Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. Madam Clerk, may we have a public hearing on this? Or we've already done that, right? We went a little backwards on this one. Okay, motion,
Motion to send to council with recommendation approved.
Second.
The committee is voting on the motion to forward item 5, ordinance 2025-236 to council with a recommendation to approve. Ms. Lynch,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jones,
Aye.
Chair Robertson.
Aye.
That motion has been approved. Item 6, ordinance 2025-237 to authorize the CAO on behalf of the city to execute the third enterprise zone corporation agreement between the city, Virginia, and the Economic Development Authority of the city for the purpose of administering the enterprise zone program to stabilize and revitalize enterprise zone areas by stimulating private investments through financial incentives. That paper is before the committee.
have a presentation from administration on this paper?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jacqueline Teamer with the Department of Economic Development. The paper before you, item 6, is for the reauthorization of the Enterprise Zone Program Cooperation Agreement between the City of Richmond and the Economic Development Authority. This agreement establishes the administrative framework necessary for managing Richmond's local enterprise zone program in partnership with the Commonwealth of Virginia. Richmond's two enterprise zones, Zone 19 and 28A, serve as tools to attract private investment, support job creation, and stimulate revitalization in key commercial corridors. This agreement enables the Department of Economic Development through the EDA to administer 6 local rebate programs that directly support small businesses operating within these designated zones. The rebates range from $1,000 to $10,000. As of June 2025, we awarded over $225,000 in enterprise zone funds to 47 applicants, helping leverage more than $11.5 million in private investment. At the state level, Richmond projects received $719,000 in enterprise zone grants during the most recent funding cycle. This fiscal year 2026 agreement includes a couple of administrative changes, including the clarification of the definition of specialized equipment for our machinery and equipment rebate. It also includes an increase in the maximum machinery and equipment rebate from $5,000 to $10,000. enhancing support for companies that are making substantial capital investments. Looking forward, we are also in the final stages of review of our zone boundaries and current incentives with recommended updates to the program to be presented to the committee either by the end of this calendar year or the beginning of next year. We request your support for this agreement, which is fully funded in the fiscal year 26 adopted budget and which reaffirms Richmond's commitment to supporting our small business community and strengthening the city's economic foundation.
Questions before we go to the public hearing? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, go to the hearing.
Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in opposition to this paper? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in support of this paper? Madam Chair, seeing none, the public hearing is now closed and back to the committee.
Motion to approve.
Second.
The committee is voting on the motion to forward item 6, ordinance 2025-237 to council with a recommendation to approve. Ms. Lynch?
Aye.
Vice Chair Jones?
Aye.
Chair Robertson?
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you. Next item, number 7.
Item 7, Resolution 2025-043 to request that the CAO calls the Department of Finance and Department of Housing and Community Development in coordination with other relevant city departments to conduct an inventory of existing city programs and initiatives that mitigate displacement, to assess their effectiveness, and to report findings and recommendations to the council within 120 days. That paper is before the committee.
Clerk Maria, you want to give us an overview of this? We've worked on, just for a little background, we got housing opportunities made equal to do a study for us. It's been a couple of years, I think now, maybe longer. And we've been aggressively trying to work through a strategy in policy that the city can adopt to address our efforts to mitigate displacement. Marie, you want any comments as it relates to the paper?
Sure, yes, ma'am. And Madam Chair, and I believe that we have a representative from Home who has joined by Teams and would like to speak during the public comment period for this paper. Yes, but just for a little bit of background for those in the room, my name is Maria Garnett. I'm a council policy analyst. Like Chair Robertson said, I had the opportunity to work with Housing Opportunities Made Equal of Virginia, or Home of Virginia, to try to draft something that sort of synthesizes a lot of the research and best practices that they have seen other cities adopt into where can we give ourselves the best information to start from in order to make sure our strategy for preventing displacement is informed by what we're already doing, so we can see what we're not doing, so we can see what needs to be enhanced maybe by better staffing and funding, maybe areas where we can draw resources down from. So I think, and something that is important to me, at least as a program evaluation professional for this resolution, is that so much of what this resolution calls for is simply bringing into one place information about staffing, programs, and funding that should already exist throughout city government. So sort of similar to when Mayor Avula stood up last night and gave the presentation about all of the different efforts to combat poverty in city government and showed that map of the different departments and everyone that has some involvement in doing that. There's a similar idea here, just to get some specificity so everyone's on the same page about what the city is doing to combat displacement and where we could potentially go from there. Last thing I'll say is that part of the time frame envisioned in the resolution is so that council could receive this information back in time to inform you all's decisions during the budget process.
Thank you, Ms. Garrett. We appreciate the work that you've done to help us get us to this place. Any questions before we go to the public hearing?
Madam Chair, I do regret to inform the committee, I have a family issue I need to go take care of, so I will have to leave. But full support on this paper and would like to be a co-patron on it, and really regret not being able to hear the update about the GAP program, the tax relief program. But I'll get some cliff notes from staff and definitely be following up with you all about that. So I apologize for having to wait.
All is well with the family. Thank you. Madam Clerk, then we'll move to the public hearing. Thank
Is
you.
there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in opposition to this paper? Is there anyone in the chamber that wishes to speak in support of this paper? Madam Chair, seeing none, the public hearing is now closed and back to the committee.
I understand there is someone from home that would like to speak to the paper, Madam Clerk.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Ms. Shun, you can unmute.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Annika Shun. I'm the housing policy advocate at Housing Opportunities Made Equal, and we support this resolution. We think establishing a complete inventory of the city's existing programs and tools is an essential first step to mapping out a comprehensive displacement mitigation strategy, which we believe the city desperately needs. Richmond has experienced significant displacement of its Black population in the last 25 years, and its most vulnerable residents will continue to be at risk unless the city takes purposeful action to prevent displacement. So we see this effort as a fair housing imperative, and we are in support. Thank you.
Thank you, and appreciate the work that Home continue to do to make housing a fair in the city of Richmond. Thank you. Okay, we'll bring it back to the committee for a motion
Yeah.
and any comments.
Yes.
Discussion?
Yes. Oh, I think this is a awesome resolution. I know we talked a lot about this in land use. And so to see it materialize is amazing. And I think there is some synergy between the financing piece of the work that we do and then land use as we're looking at how much land we have, where we're building across the city, and in what area, what tools are being used. I do think this is a great start and something that I'm excited to see because I've been asking since last year, like, what is our, I didn't even call it displacement, I say stabilization plan. So I think this is a really good start to that. And I'd also like to be added to this as a co-patron.
That is noted.
Appreciate that very much.
Motion to approve, Madam Chair.
Right, and I'll second that motion and appreciate the work that our staff has done to get us there. Housing Opportunities Made Equal, always been a great partner of the city. And certainly Ms. Ebert and your office and the work that you all continue to do to help us to address our housing needs from different perspective. And so 2 great papers today for housing and community in the city of Richmond. Call the question, Madam Clerk.
The committee is voting on the motion for item 7, resolution 2025 R043 to council with the recommendation to approve. Vice Chair Jones,
Aye.
Chair Robertson. That motion has been approved.
Thank you. Okay, I think that takes care of the papers before us, Madam Clerk. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
All right, we'll move to presentations. And we'll take them in the order as they appear on the agenda. First being risk management. Ms. Shelton. How's the city treating you? Still smiling? Okay.
My day with a smile ended with a smile. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. The first presentation up is the Bureau of Risk Management, and I'm going to have the person who really oversees it come forward. Donnell Stewart, our Chief of Risk and Management, will do this presentation.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Ms. Jones, committee members. I'm Donnell Stewart, Chief of Risk Management, and just like to present the overview of risk management. We are the city's insurance agent. We purchase insurance on behalf of the city, and we also identify risk, and we put in steps to mitigate those risks, be it by purchasing insurance, commercial insurance. We also self-insured as a self-insured entity, and we are self-insured for a municipality of this size. We also handle general and auto liability claims. We oversee the workers' compensation program, the safety program, as well as subrogation efforts. When city property is damaged, we have the legal right to pursue recovery for those damages from those third parties. As a municipality, we are bound by federal, state, and local policies and laws. Some of those for federal are the EPA, being that we have underground storage tanks. We also have to comply with OSHA for reporting employee injuries, for work-related injuries, illnesses, and hospitalizations. Some of the state policies we have to comply with, we are required by state law to have a risk management function, a person designated to oversee that function, as well as in compliance with the Workers' Compensation Act, which is 65.2, which governs the responsibilities of the employer and the employee when the employee is injured. The city policies that we govern or have to comply with are also, they mirror that of the state code, which is our admin reg 5.1 for workers' compensation. We also have a return to duty program, which is a process of when an employee is injured, there are certain steps that are conducted to get that employee back to work in compliance with the state law. And we also make sure they have indemnity and their medical bills are paid while they are out of work. As I mentioned, we handle liability claims. Roughly, the city receives about 700 liability claims annually. The chart that you're looking at now is a breakdown of the percentage of claims. These are not the claims that are paid. These are only the claims that are received by the city. As you can see, there's a breakdown, 30% for potholes, accidents, property damage, and tree limbs. So it does vary on the type of claims that we do receive. The graph here shows the breakdown for fiscal year 24 for the 6 largest city departments for both liability and workers' compensation claims for the city. If you notice for police, there is a much larger number for liability claims in fiscal year 24. That is due to an outlier, which was an automobile accident that resulted in a fatality that was been well documented. Outside of that, the numbers are normally consistent as they are there on the graph.
Any explanation for fire?
For workers' compensation, their increase, yes. Fire is governed by a presumption type of claims. So the General Assembly has increased the number of cancers that are covered. So the medical costs are rising. So therefore, we are having more firefighters with those type of cancers that are covered, resulting in early retirement, but still medical care until they expire. As I mentioned, we also oversee the subrogation program. The city is entitled by state law to recover for damages for any property, vehicles that a third party damages to a city vehicle. And the 2 charts show for claims on the left, the liability claims from fiscal year 23, 24, and 25. There was a sharp decrease from fiscal year 23 to 24 due to a lowered number of claims, as well as the lowered amount of severity of those claims. So then that drove the cost down. Same thing for workers' compensation. We had fewer claims where the third party damaged or injured our employees, and the medical costs were lower, or the severity of the injuries were not as much.
So what contributes to the significant reduction?
Significant reduction in which one, ma'am? For both liability or?
Yeah.
Yes. So the lower severity as well as the lower number of claims against the third party or the at-fault driver or at-fault person against the city. So our claims went down in that regard. We also do contract reviews for insurance. So when we have RFPs and we have outside vendors, we make sure we are looking at the contracts to address the city's exposure and make sure we're passing that exposure on to the vendors and the contractors rather than the city assuming that liability risk for any type of damages that's caused. And we make sure the city is indemnified by that vendor. To do forecasting, we rely on an actuarial firm that does a projection annually of our expected costs. They take our historical data from past claims over the past years and compare that to the industry and what the industry is expecting our losses would be. So our actuarial projections for fiscal year 26 are showing that our general liability type of claims are going to increase by about 6% from the prior year, fiscal year 25. Liability claims will go up 4% and workers' compensation will go up 11% due to the rising medical cost in the industry. Rising medical cost in the industry. Any questions from the committee?
I guess my question is, how are we faring? I mean, how are we faring? This doesn't give me enough information to appreciate whether we are within a reasonable margin of error as it relates to risk. What is costing us? Is it costing us more? Are there any particular programs or so forth that we have in place that give us a better to be less of a risk versus factors that increase our risk, and whether or not that is costing us more, whether or not there are any recommendations of other policies, programs, or other methods, other considerations that the city should consider putting in place to reduce our risk, or are we doing substantially better than the average city of our size? Lots of questions.
Absolutely.
One question.
Absolutely.
How are we faring?
I did not have that for the sake of this presentation, but I can get that information for you. But
That's the whole purpose of looking at risk, is trying to determine where we stand.
Well, the city stands in relationship to the industry. Our costs are rising because of litigation costs, medical costs, insurance costs are constantly on the rise. Right now, we're in a hard market, which means our insurance carriers are not more flexible in terms of the rates because of the amount of claims that the insurance carriers are enduring. For example, the fires out in the West Coast. We share in those losses because we are covered by the same insurance companies that those carriers in the West Coast have. So when a claim is filed, the insurance company pays it, they pass it on to the other carriers in that loss.
Okay. I will. I appreciate that. I recognize that that's the way the industry works. I mean, everybody chips in and
correct
carry everybody's burdens, but some type of analysis of Richmond, not as it relates to cost that is determined by what's happening in the global industry and the cost of insurance going up, cost of those kind of things. I'm more interested in the incidents that result in workman compensation and other types of injuries, and also whether or not there the liability claims that we do get, whether or not there's other methods that we should be considering putting in place to reduce our liability
Absolutely.
and the number of claims is what I'm asking.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. We can provide it to you.
You will provide
I
that to
can
us
provide it to you, yes.
anytime soon?
I could gather information by the end of next week, ma'am.
Make it good.
Yes.
If
Okay.
don't over promise and deliver.
Under deliver.
Yeah. All righty.
I got
We'll
two
look
quick
forward
questions.
to it. I have some other questions.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So your presentation focuses on general liability and workers' compensation, but it doesn't include any information about the city's liability, self-insurance, or claims related to workplace discrimination or harassment. Is there a reason why that's not in there?
Workplace harassment and discrimination is handled by the Human Resources Department.
Okay. All right. And then, does the Bureau of Risk Management or third-party administrator have a role in assisting departments with analysis of service coverage risk due to legally protected leave programs? That's human resources too?
I'm not sure what you refer to by service
Service coverage risk.
service coverage risk. Yes, I'm not
Mhm.
familiar with that term, but we don't handle the leave program.
Right, and I think, and the follow-up was, does that exist in HR? And I
That
think
probably
now that I'm
exists in
reading it,
HR,
probably
yes.
exists in HR.
Yes.
Okay. And I think my colleague may have asked you this, but does the pie chart represent all claims or only successful claims resulting in a payout?
That represents all claims that were received by the city attorney's office.
Just in receipt?
Correct. Just
Mhm.
received into the city, not claims paid.
Okay. And could you provide a more detailed breakdown of liability claims paid by the city on behalf of RPD? Are you able to do that?
By RPD.
Richmond Police Department.
Yes, that should be in the. You want a larger breakdown?
Mm-hmm.
Then that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
By type.
Yes. Oh, you got the sheet. Ms. Jordan.
Thank you so much. I had two questions. One, would your office be responsible for trying to forecast any other potential risks as we encountered with the Grimm settlement? First question.
The Grimm settlement was considered an outlier. That's not something we could forecast or prepare for. We did try to file a claim through our carrier, which was denied because the incident occurred in 1976, and we had a different carrier at the time. And we don't know that carrier is even in business now.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question was just with sort of the increase in extreme heat days, are we working as a city to think about protecting those workers to minimize, potential claims, workers' comp claims for stress-related heat incidents?
Annually, we work with the agencies and our safety officers, put out information about heat exhaustion, recognizing heat-related injuries, illnesses, signs and symptoms, parameters are put in place for like the buddy system, make sure you're hydrated, hydration systems, hydration stations. All those are put out in place to prevent those types of injuries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Follow-up.
Yes, ma'am.
The concern, the tremendous increase for fire and your comment in relationship to different types of cancer.
Yes, ma'am.
There's been a bit of information in the media as it relates to this. And so when you get me that report back, I think it's important that we need to have a better understanding of what we're doing to try to prevent those exposure to substance that is increasing the cancers, the different types of cancer that our firefighters are facing. And any recommendations that may even come from the Department of Fire and Safety Department as it relates to additional types of intervention that perhaps we should be considering to be put in place to reduce our, I mean, this could be a huge long-term risk and very costly to the city and to us, to our employees. The exposure and whatever the fire department is doing to minimize that risk for us would be helpful to better understand that as well. And then I guess the claims that you're indicating in your report by each department, some breakdown about a little bit more. I don't want specifics, like only if it's, if it's for public works, if it's all potholes, fine. That just gives us a descriptive, because what we will do is go back to those departments and say, what can we do to minimize our liability and reduce our risk? That's essentially the kinds of feedback that we would like, so that if there are other measures that the city can take, we at least want to know what they are, and we can get a better assessment of that.
Of course. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate the report.
Thank you for your time.
All righty. Madam Clerk, next presentation.
I lost the tracker. I had to find. Good evening, Madam Chair, Committee. I'm Letitia Shelton, Director of Finance, here to present some basic information on the city's tax relief and GAP grant program. Information about these programs can also be found on our city website, rba.gov finance. The GAP grant has its own tab, which citizens can click on, and the eligibility requirements and the applications there to apply, as well as the tax relief programs, are also available on our website under financial forms. So this afternoon, we're going to be talking about 5 programs: the Grant GRAP program, the Older Adults and Persons with Disabilities program, the Real Estate Exemptions, Personal Property Tax, and Tax Amnesty. City Ordinance 2024-272, adopted November 12th of 2024, amends Chapter 16, Article 1 of the City Code by adding a new section, 16-3, concerning the GAP grant program for income-based housing grants. The GAP grant program provides a one-time income-based grant in the amount of $1,200 to qualified applicants. The applicants are currently being accepted through applications are currently being accepted through December 31st of this year, 2025. The budget is set at $3.9 million to provide the funding for these grants. Applicants must meet the definition of a low income, 8% for the Richmond, Virginia metropolitan statistic area by house size, according to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Applications cannot be received. Applicants cannot apply for this grant if they're receiving other household assistance from the City of Richmond. Applicants must be current on their real estate taxes with the City of Richmond. Implementation challenges with the GAP program. The program was set to start January 1st of 2025. Applications were made available on January 13th of 2025. This task was assigned to the real estate division within the finance department. This division currently is budgeted for 10 positions. Currently, there are 6 with 4 vacancies. The real estate division oversees the GAP grant program and the other tax relief programs as well. 1 staff member is dedicated to the GAP grant program to process applications and contact the applicants for missing documentation. Unfortunately, the GAP program is a manual process. So it's not like the applications come in online and we can just go through and blah, blah, check. There's actually paperwork that this one person was responsible for. Total grants received to date is 2,337. Of that, so please note on your paperwork, there are 975 applicants that are unprocessed at this time. Also, if you note, there are 1,100 closed tickets, which represents incomplete applications and no documentations, as well as applicants who do not reside in the city of Richmond. Our next steps that I've been working on is we've hired 3 temporary staffs to come in to work on the backlog of the 975 applicants. Although the program is supposed to end December 31st, we will continue to process the received applications until the budgeting funding for this program has zeroed out.
So before you move to the next one, what's the outstanding revenue right now? Is that the 3.8?
Yes, ma'am, it's roughly 3.8.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the total beginning budget was 5?
No, the total beginning budget is 3.9.
3.9.
Yes, ma'am.
And we have 3.8 remaining.
Yes.
And total applications was?
To date, we received 2,337.
And you've processed how many?
To date, we've processed about 200.
200. And so the difference of 2,000, we don't know where they stand at the present time because the work that needs to be done to determine eligibility and all of that hasn't been done. And that's how the 3 staff persons are coming in to address that?
So to date, of that 2,337, 1,100 of those have been disqualified. They've been closed because they didn't submit all their documentation or they live outside of the city. This was only for city residents.
Right.
But we had folks from Chesterfield as well as Henrico County applying.
So the 1,100 that has been dismissed because they don't meet the qualification, not all of them were out of city. They were not all residents outside of the city.
No. Some of them, they had incomplete applications.
Incomplete application.
Yes, ma'am.
When you have incomplete applications, is there a process to try to complete the application, or is just?
No, we do reach out, and that's why it's taken so long. When the application is reviewed and information is missing, we then contact the resident either by phone or email.
So I guess the question I'm asking you is the ones that we have decided does not qualify.
Mm-hmm.
The question is how many are not qualifying because you never got a full application versus they didn't meet the criteria.
I'm sorry, one more time.
Okay, so you have criteria that has to be met.
Yes, ma'am.
And so you would, someone would not qualify because they don't meet that criteria. My question is, of the 1,100, You've made it clear that some of them didn't live in the city, no problem. Of the others that did not give a complete application were not eligible because they didn't never fulfill the complete application, versus of that 1,100, they didn't qualify. That's the difference that I'm looking at.
Okay.
And the reason I asked that, because you got one staff person that's been working on this for a year, or 9 months, whatever. That's a lot of work. There's a
That's-
lot of, and it's all paperwork, and there's so much opportunity for error. So just to get a sense of that would be helpful.
So I should probably correct myself, Councilwoman Robson, because I think in the beginning, there were more folks working on the project. But over time, it just still windowed down to just one. When I arrived, there was only one person working on the grant fund.
Okay. Did you have a question on that, Mr. Jones?
I didn't necessarily have a question, but I just wanted to alert that this GAP grant application has been trending all day today on social media. And I will state, it says, if you live in Richmond and need mortgage or rent help, please apply to this program in the comments ASAP. So which means it is about to be flooded again. And so I do think that whatever challenges that we've had all this time, just know it's getting ready to be flooded again. And if we, people, we don't have the capacity to really connect with folks coming, that then creates, we can't get help, we can't get, the support that we need. So I just want to alert you that it's coming, because it's multiple people have shared it today all over. So
I appreciate that. The three hires that we've made have been trained, and they're starting to pick speed with that process. Again, the longest part of the process is when the application's incomplete, and we have to reach out to those citizens who sometimes are not responsive. And so one of the things, Madam Chair, is that in that 1,100, they had 30 days to respond to our request for additional information. And then if that time they have not responded, then the application is put aside.
Perfectly understand.
Okay.
Jordan, you have a question?
Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
Thank you so much, Chair Robertson. I've been getting outreach prior to this being in the news, and really welcome the additional attention to it from our seniors who just have trouble accessing government services. And some suggestions they had were if there's a way for there to be caller ID, that this is a City of Richmond phone call, because unfortunately they're the victim of too many scam calls, as we all are. And then additional question would be, is there any sort of mail that goes out to people who have submitted an application, alerting them that's been received, or how to follow up instead of just relying on the phone? Thank you.
Councilwoman Jordan, I'm not gonna, don't hold me to this, but I don't think any communication has gone out to the point to say to citizens that we are behind. And that's something that we fell short on, that we should have publicized.
he said, question. The documents that folks are not, that they're missing, how are we, is there something, I guess, other than online or information that states exactly what you need in order to qualify for the program?
Yes, the instructions are on the online that tells you exactly what you need to qualify.
Okay. Okay.
To the older adults, right? Older adults is the next category, is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
Older adults and persons with disabilities program. This code is City Code 364, I'm sorry, and 26365. Also established in November of 2024. It basically states the taxpayer must be a owner of the property on January 1st of the taxable year. The taxpayer may apply for either the exemption for the tax freeze or the tax exemption, but you can't apply for both. The tax freeze program is designed to assist senior citizens by freezing their property taxes at a certain amount, providing financial relief to seniors and disabled persons.
I'm sorry, Ms. Shelton, can you advance the slide to the
Oh, sorry.
program you were discussing? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The tax freeze program locks their tax amount in at a level where they first qualify. So if the property tax increase, then their tax amount will not change as long as they continue to meet the qualifications that they were approved for. The tax freeze option has been available to taxpayers in prior years. However, the gross income and net worth qualifications were identical to the tax exempt program, so nobody took advantage of the tax freeze program. In November of 2024, City Council raised the income and net worth threshold for the tax freeze program. And so since that implementation, we've received at least four applications. Any questions on this one?
Yes. Do we put a cap on how much revenue we're going to, do we have a cap on the amount for exemption or for freeze? Or do we just respond to as many applications as we get? Qualified applications, I should say.
One second. There's no cap. No cap.
We do not have a cap?
No.
Okay. And your report, boy. I must say, when I first read this report, I'm looking at it again now. I was very impressed with the way that the report was presented. It was very easy to follow. I really appreciate that. But it does say adopted budget at a certain dollar amount. 21, it has 4.2, 22, 25, we up to 5.7. So I guess what I'm asking whether or not there's an adopted budget for that, which is, for me, is we set a cap based on what we adopt in the budget.
Okay.
Okay. And so the question is, it appears to be, are we getting application that exceeds or fulfill the budget dollar amount that is appropriated for each year? So your actual that you're showing, so you say adopted budget, then you show an actual. So I'm to understand the actual mean that's actual exemptions that were awarded, right? At that dollar amount, correct?
Correct.
So your delta is significantly small. In other words, we're maximizing the programs, pretty much, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do we get more applications than we budget money for?
Come to the mic. Come to the mic. Have to get my operations manager up here to assist me.
No problem. No problem. And the reason I'm asking, because I think it's important for the council to understand if our appropriation is within line for the applicants that we get, or do you cut off applications once you've reached the budget amount?
Hi, my name is Jackie Hubbard, and I'm the Real Estate Revenue Manager. And I'm not aware of applications ever being cut off due to budget appropriations. Some of that is also dependent on the tax assessor's office and how they assess the value of property. But we've had some tax applications this year for the freeze. But because it's based on the prior year assessment, so far that has not been a large value in the budget. So I'm not aware of them ever receiving enough applications that the budget has been an issue.
Can you do a little bit of probing on that research that just
Sure.
Think that would be helpful for us, if we know that there are, I mean, the discussion we just had last night, I mean, the people that we were talking about in these categories are people that really need our assistance. And this is our way of being focused and targeted and addressing people that have the greatest needs. And so more analysis that we understand what that need is, and I think it would have a tremendous difference on our budgetary priorities as to how we begin the process. Some things that we put before us, like the discussion we had last night, go across the board. These programs really do target the people that we are speaking of. So the reason why we asked for this report is to kind of give us a window of whether or not we are doing this, are we making it a priority based on the demand and needs as well. So if you all could maybe look at that, crunch that a little bit, and maybe come back with some recommendations that says, listen, we're hitting the ballpark, we're hitting the population demand, we're not hitting it. This is where we think we should be or could be if we could fulfill the need, right? At least we
Yes,
would
ma'am.
know some dollars specific. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All righty. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I was informed that I was going to say something that wasn't accurate, and I reminded myself that I'm in a public meeting and that would not be appropriate.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, let's find out what's going on with real estate exemption.
Okay. Real estate. The real estate exemption program is on the screen now. Beginning on or after January 1st of 2011, a real estate tax exemption was put in place to provide for dwelling in the land, including joint real estate property of husband and wife or of any veteran who had been rated by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs to have 100% disability. Also, they later on amended the the code to address surviving spouses of the veterans eligible for this exemption after January 2011. And the spouse can get this exemption as long as they don't remarry. If a veteran was killed in action after January 1st of 2015, the surviving spouse also qualifies for this exemption. And let's see, the last thing I have on this is currently there are 309 total exempt properties for veterans and their surviving spouses. Can't provide you any additional information on that because it comes from the assessor's office.
So the criteria for the program, is this based on state or is this city code? I'm int-
The real
or-
estate exemption?
Yeah. The
It's-
qualification for exemption, are those regulated, those are state exemptions and we follow
Yes.
with the state. There's no exception at the local level.
Correct.
Okay. And we have 309 properties at the total at the present time.
Correct.
Okay. And is it total exemption of taxes or is it based on incomes or any other factors that weigh in on the eligibility?
I didn't see any other exemptions, criterias, but I can double check.
Yeah, let me know. Okay. All right, next.
Personal property tax relief. Virginia Code 58-1-3523. By state law, Virginia offers a tax relief for vehicle taxes. The state will subsidize the taxes owed on the vehicle for up to the first $20,000. The state tax relief is only available for personal vehicles. Business vehicles are not included in this relief. To receive the state tax relief, you must certify your vehicle every year. You must certify your vehicle every year. The qualifications are you must be the owner of the car. It must not be used for a business purpose, and it must be registered with the DMV and have a gross weight less than 10,000 pounds. In 2004, General Assembly approved legislation that capped the statewide personal property tax reimbursement at $950 million, starting the year 2007. The city receives an reimbursement from the state for this tax of $16.7 million. And each year our tax rate is $3.70 that we take off for the tax relief.
So you said they're not business vehicles are not eligible, but it does say that even if it's a personal, it can't be used more than 50% for business use. Does that reduce the eligibility
Yes.
for that 50% that is used for business use?
Yes.
Self-reporting? Property owners self-reporting
For the
is
business?
the only requirement for the use of the vehicle.
The use of the vehicle can't be used for the business.
Hmm?
The use of the vehicle can't be used for this is only applied to personal vehicles, not businesses.
So I'm looking at your bullet point here that says the vehicle must be used 50% or less for business purposes. So it
yes,
does suggest that you got 50% there.
Less than, if you have 49%, then yes, you could take the tax.
Okay. But you get relief for the total value, the eligibility amount.
Yes.
Okay. And you said the state passed a law that is changing that. What was that?
No, I didn't. The state, they put a cap on the amount that they would allocate to the municipalities.
Okay.
Back in 2004. So beginning in 2007,
seven or 70?
2007.
Okay.
They put a cap. The cap is for reimbursements is 950 million.
And does the city pay more than give more of a relief, or that's strictly the maximum amount that would be allowed, the 950?
The 950 is an overall pot that the state has to divvy out to the municipalities. Of that amount, the city receives 16,708,749.
Is it used to the max?
Yes, ma'am. Very good.
That's it.
All right, coming on home.
Mhm.
Tax amnesty program no longer exists. It's Virginia State Code 58 1-1840.2 established the Virginia Tax Amnesty Program. Under this legislation, the Virginia Tax Amnesty Program was administered by the Department of Taxation for a period of 60 to 75 days during the fiscal year of 2018. So the program ran from September the 13th to November the 14th of the tax year 2017, and it no longer exists. Any questions?
No program, why? No program administered in 25.
No program administered since 2018.
2018. I'll call you about that one. Okay, so total dollars and cents, total exemption average that the city is, I know you don't have that here in your report. I know you can add up some numbers, but I think it's important. I asked that question because, when we are talking about different types of reduction in revenues and those kinds of stuff, we should know, and we should be telling the community for families in the greatest need and other options that the city does put in place to address affordability, the cost of living in the city, and what exemptions are there available to help address that. It would be a great way to be able to package that in a means by which we could deliver that message, and it would be a clear message. Now, some folk will like that and other folk won't like that. We understand that, but I think we're doing it. And I think we should recognize what we're actually doing to try to make a difference in those with the greatest need.
Yes, we have a lot of programs that will help out the citizens.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? You have a question, Ms. Jordan? Yes.
Thank you so much, Chair Robertson. For your last slide on the tax abatement window, I think that was something that Mayor Stoney rolled out when he was first elected as sort of a short window. Has there been any conversation of bringing back a similar window where people could get current on their overdue taxes? Can we go back to that slide? Tax amnesty. So maybe I'm misreading it, but was that a program where people who owed delinquent taxes could be incentivized to pay them off in a window of time because penalties interest have been waived?
I'd have to get more information on it. That was introduced to the state. That was
Okay.
the state's
Yeah.
mandate.
And we've done it once, but we have not done it in quite some time.
I still think we would have to get the approval from the state to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we have one more. That's it?
No, Madam Chair, we're done. That presentation was done at the beginning of the meeting.
Right, then if I'm understanding correctly, we've gone through the complete agenda. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
And we are honored to be able to have had this meeting to last only 5 minutes. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.